Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for May 6th, 2024. Well, let's take a look at what happened overnight. We had Asian markets were mixed last night. The Nikkei and Korea was a little bit lower, but the rest of the markets were up pretty nicely. Shanghai was up 1.16%, and Hong Kong being up 102%. And this was just kind of a follow through for our U.S. job data that seems to be fueling. It's amazing. It's news report after news report mentioning that now we can expect a Fed rate cut. It would seem to me that's a little bit premature to be thinking about that, but boy, they're pumping it hard in the news reports here this morning. If we take a look at European markets are also mentioning the same thing, possible rate cuts. And they had some PMI data that was positive, moving European markets higher this morning. So we've got those European markets green across the board this morning, with the DAX up 156 points. Really decidedly bullish here this morning. Let's take a look at U.S. futures. U.S. futures are also green across the board heading into the open, and once again they are in headlines on the U.S. futures, hopes of a Fed rate cut. So boy, I tell you what, this market is just it's amazing how they can continue to pump this rate cut idea, even though we're probably a long ways away from the Fed actually making those decisions. Let's take a look at our oil this morning. Oil is higher across the board this morning. We've got oil up 83 cents a barrel at 78.94. Brent is up 73 cents a barrel at 83.69. And natural gas is just, almost flat. We've got precious metals here this morning that are green across the board. Gold is surging up almost $20 an ounce this morning. Silver's up. Copper, platinum, and palladium are all higher this morning. And we are seeing the cryptos also moving up, mostly up here this morning, with Bitcoin currently pushing for $140 this morning, up on crypto, back above that 60,000, comfortably back up around 64,000. So trying to look pretty good. Let's take a peek at our bonds this morning. Our bonds are just a little bit lower here. We've got the 2-year bond at 4.82%, the 10-year at 4.51%, and the 30-year at 4.66%. So once again, that confidence really creeping up that, we're going to see rate cuts from the Fed. I wouldn't hold my breath on that just yet. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up and let's get ready for the Monday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these charts and see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, one of the most important things is to shake off your bias on what you want the market to do. And let's look at the charts for what they are. So first off, as you can see, big solid move there on Monday, leaving a big old gap behind here. And we're trying to push and gain on that move yesterday or on Friday. One thing that was interesting about Friday is we gapped up and then just had no energy. It was just completely lethargic, very choppy the rest of the day after the morning gap. There was really not much of any kind of follow through. So looking here today to see if we can get some of that follow through. We'll be looking up here to see if we can break this next resistance level in the chart. Now, this would be a fairly significant resistance level to break, because what you can see here is we're trying to push above that 50-day moving average, and there's a lot of price action resistance here in the chart. So we'll see if we can follow through now there. Now, remember, one of the patterns you always want to watch for is when we fail the 50 or rally back to the 50, you start looking for that potential that we could roll back over. Now, I'm not certainly suggesting that's going to happen. I'm just putting it out there that we need to be watchful for that possibility if we do find reason in some data to push us back down. Now, looking beyond that point, you can see if we can break through up here, then I'm going to look for areas right up through here. You can see right through there, there's a little bit of price resistance. We got a little bit more right up through here in those middle areas of that consolidation area. And then if we can push through that, well, then we're right back up here breaking through here. And I would suggest after that, if we can get up there, we would probably be looking at the possibility of new highs in the market. Now, if the bears were to find inspiration here today to push back, well, that possibility, as you can see, would be pushing right back down into this price support area of the chart. Beyond that point, we'll start looking at these little tops through here to see if we can progressively push on down. And then, of course, the major support being down in here. Now, obviously, we would need some pretty big shift in sentiment for that to occur to push on down there. And then, of course, we're looking at recent lows. If we take a look at our SPY, also trying to push on through here this morning, trying to really break higher. Big tech doing most of that lifting here this morning, trying to really push. But if you take a look, we're also in this one breaking back up through that 50-day moving average, and we're pressing into a fairly significant level of price resistance as well. So we'll want to keep an eye on that area up in here to see if we can break on through. And there's every reason to believe that we could break on through, because there certainly is a massive amount of hype on the tech giants, and they're continuing to push really, really hard here. And then, of course, we've got these massive stock buybacks, the record buyback from Apple, $110 billion, and a lot of these companies are starting to come out from underneath their blackout period. It's probably 60+ % of the companies coming back out of their blackout period. And so we could see that market breadth actually kick up if they start buying to push those stocks higher. So we'll want to watch that carefully. Now, if the bears were to find inspiration here for today, the area that I would be looking for is right back down here to test this little support area in that chart, and then pushing right on down here to retest this downtrend break. And see if we can hold it as support. And beyond that point, of course, we're looking down in here. I didn't really go any further than this resistance in the chart here today, but if we were to push through up here, let's look right through there. There's a resistance level that we'd be watching. And then, of course, we'd be looking a little bit higher right in here, and then we're looking at all-time highs in the SPY. If we look at our QQQ, well, the old NASDAQ continuing to push up here. Big tech really shoving hard here this morning, and we're pushing right up into this major resistance area of the chart. Notice we've got a downtrend here as well that we'll have to contend with. Now, as we look at that, we'll want to notice that we're also pushing that 50-day moving average. So we've got a little bit of a triple whammy in resistance in here, but with the way tech has been operated here, there seems to be no price people are not willing to pay for some of these tech giants. So no surprise if we continue to push up through that area. Now, if we go through that resistance in the chart, next levels up are going to be probably somewhere right up in here, pushing on up, and then, of course, right in here, and then we're looking at all-time highs in the QQQ. If the bears were to find inspiration for today, then pushing us back down in this little support area of the chart should be something to be watching for. And if we fail that, well, you can see next level's down here, probably coming down into here, and we'll test this uptrend here in the chart to see if we can hold. Breaking down through there, it gets a little bit ugly, and we start looking for a pretty substantial pullback then in the failure of the 50 is something to be watching for, although right now the enthusiasm of the market and all of these stories out there saying we're going to get a Fed rate cut, well, we'll have to wait and see. If we take a look at our IWM continuing to push to the upside here, and this has been a nice move. IWM holding on to that upside trend and breaking through this resistance in the chart on Friday and holding it as support. You'll notice we pushed back, held it as support, and continuing to show that upside push. So if we can continue to push back up in here, there's going to be a little bit of resistance that we need to break through in that chart to see if we can move on higher. And if that breaks, I'm going to look just a little bit higher, maybe right up through here in the chart, see if we can push through there, and then right back up into this very, very significant resistance area that we've failed twice. And that is that massive resistance here, multi-year resistance in the chart. If the bears were to find inspiration today, well, it's pretty easy to see that. We might push right back down into here, see if we can hold that area as support. If they continue to push, probably looking at areas down in here that we would progressively move through to find support levels in the chart. Let's take a look at our VIX. Our VIX dropped hard on Friday, really pushing down here. We're back down here at 13 handles, showing no fear in the market. And that possibility, if the bulls can continue to push here today, we push back down here toward these lows here in the chart. Looks very reasonable for that possibility, and even pushing on down further than that. So we'll want to watch those areas if those bulls continue to push. Now, if the bears were to find some inspiration, pretty easy to see those resistance levels up here if there were some selling to come into the market. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, and that's a big if the sellers come into the market. If we take a look at our T20s, T2122, we had a little bit of a hook in there Friday. Sometimes those hockey sticks like that little hook up in the air would suggest a downside move, but we're pushing on through that this morning as the bullishness of Friday kind of rippled through Asia and European markets this morning. So we still have that possibility, I think a pretty strong possibility, that we could stretch this on up here. There is that possibility that we could be up here pretty easily in the bearish reversal zone first thing this morning on this gap up open. So watch that carefully. We may be running out of a little bit of space up here. Keep a close eye on that in the chart. If the bears were to find inspiration, well, we have a pretty good opportunity there for pulling back. And one of the reasons for looking at T2122 is just showing us those really big bearish reversal zones and bullish reversal zones. And if I pull this back, and this is really important to remember and recognize, everyone, is that we can't, the way that the indicator's calculated, we can't go above 100, and we will never go below 0 here in the chart. So we can't go above 100, and as we continue to push up here, if we're up here in the bearish reversal zone, just remember, we just can't push higher. And so we start looking for that possibility of a little bit of a consolidation or a resting pullback to occur in the market. So pay attention to those as we reach these very high points here in T21.22. And then if we take a look at our T21.08, the percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average, nice improvement there on Friday, pushing through some resistance here in the chart. And we're pushing right up into that area here where we're going to come up into some more resistance. Let me pull this back a little bit more. We'll come into a little bit more resistance as we start pushing up in here, but every reason to believe this morning the way things are shaping up that they will. And I would be looking for this 50% area here in the chart. If we bust through there, if we bust through that 50-day moving average, sentiment of the market will improve pretty substantially if we start seeing that many of the stocks back above their 40-day moving average. If, however, we were to fail this area here and maybe start pushing back, well, again, that sentiment could shift here just a little bit, and we could see a bit more selling come into the market. Keeping in mind we've got this downtrend in here, so we could push all the way up into there pretty easily, breaking through some of these resistance areas in the chart with a good surge of bullishness as well. If we take a look at our T21.07, well, T21.07, little W formation in there, that would be bullish. You can see we're holding, we firmly held above, tested it twice, that 50-day moving or 50% area in the chart. So the bulls are definitely in control here, and that push into this resistance in the chart, we'll just want to start progressively watching these areas up here. And then remember, as we start pushing up into this area here, we start getting very, very frothy. We've struggled very hard up into this area to push on through that zone, and once again we'll be in that overbought condition on T21.22, so keep an eye on that if we can continue to push higher. Let's take a look at our T21.01. This was our problem on Friday when we popped, gapped, and then it's like everybody just went back to the Hamptons, I guess, and took some time off because we saw breadth just decline pretty sharply here. Came down into this price support area here of the chart and this trend in the chart, so we'll want to be watching that area here. Little teeny tiny hook right there at the end of the day. It might be showing us a little hockey stick down here, and that possibility that we could see that breadth increase. And one of the reasons we might see that breadth increase again is corporate buybacks pushing this market back up and actually improving breadth. If we continue to see this upside move and push into that high point of T21.22 and that breadth continues to decline, well, start watching for that reversal to occur in the market, that little resting pullback at least maybe coming in if that breadth doesn't come into the market on the buy wave. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, well, we've got a few things to be paying attention to throughout the week, but we have a very, very light day, except for a whole bunch of Fed speak. Now, with all this conversation in the news about, hey, we're going to get rate cuts, well, let's see if we start listening to some of these Fed members as we go through the week, if they're actually in agreement with that. And I'm going to guess they're going to say, hey, we're data dependent and it's way too early to be talking about rate cuts. That would be logical, even though the news is pumping the idea of rate cuts, rate cuts, rate cuts, rate cuts. We'll have to wait and see what they come up with. But today, very light day. Good data for the market to push up. Not much data here except for earnings. We've got a 3-month auction, a 6-month auction, and then we've got Barkin and we've got Williams speaking here today. So barring any geopolitical events out there, pretty boring day here on the economic calendar. Now, moving on through, notice Tuesday, boring as well. We've got a consumer credit number in there, a bond auction, and Kashkari will be speaking. As we move into Wednesday, normal stuff, we're going to have mortgage applications, wholesale inventories, petroleum status, and then with bond auctions here, several Fed speakers throughout the day. And then on Thursday, our normal jobless claims and natural gas, bond auctions, and then, of course, a Fed balance sheet. Friday, we've got Bauman, Goolsbee, Barr speaking with the Baker Hughes rig and the Treasury statement. So just a lot of Fed speak this week and not much else on the economic calendar to bother the market. So that being said, we want to pay pretty close attention to the earnings reports. And on the earnings reports this morning, we have quite a few, not nearly as many as we have had the last few days. So I'm going to cover just a few of them here this morning for the pre-market reports. We're going to have AMG reporting here today. We're going to hear from JLL. We've got NWN will be reporting this morning. Save Airlines is going to be in there. We've got THUS, PRFT. So nice pop there this morning. Nice, very nice. BCRX. So a few notables here this morning, but not a tremendous number. And then after the bell, we have a few more in there. ADTN, AL, we've got COTY in there, FIS, we've got GT that will be in there, LITE, VAC for a few. WMB will be in there. The full list of notables here, guys, will be just below. There will be a link in the blog description that will take you back to the morning blog, the video description that will take you back to the morning blog, where you can get that full list of notables. I can't speak this morning, apparently, and everyone knows now at this point that this is not an edited video. I do this straight through, so hopefully that made some sense. Look just below the title of the video. That will take you to the morning blog where you can get the full list of notables. How about that? I said it once. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, and that would be click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to continue to grow. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who does take the time to do that. Thank you to everyone who shares these videos out on your social media feed. It's real easy to do. Just click that link and say copy and then post it right over there into your Facebook groups and other groups that you use. Thank you so much, everyone who does do that. And then also just a big shout out to everyone who supports the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. And remember, these aren't recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence and be very, very careful here on the market. Remember, we still have tremendous volatility although there is this amazing enthusiasm right now and tremendous sentiment. We want to remember that these whipsaws have been pretty much daily, big point moves. So make sure you're paying close attention to that and not just chasing in immediately. Do your own due diligence and make sure these stock ideas, that they fit your risk tolerance and your trading rules. So first off, let's take a look at some of those metals out there in the market. Alcoa tried to break this little support, but notice that the buyers rejected that push down and were pushing right up into this resistance area in the chart. I'd watch this closely for that possibility that this might just poke right on through and start moving on up here in Alcoa. Watch that carefully. I'm going to have to bring Freeport-McMoRan into that mix as well. Notice that we've pushed up here in this consolidating move. We tried to push down, but it just ended up making a little bit of a higher low. Look for that opportunity that might pop through up here soon, and we might continue moving up in copper. There's a pretty substantial, not pretty pretty substantial. There's a really big shortage of copper as we continue to build all these EVs, and it's sucking up all the copper that is available at the moment. So watch that carefully. We could really start pushing through those areas in the chart. And anything in that realm, SCCO is another stock to look at, breaking through up here, little higher low coming into that chart, as you can see here, and that opportunity that this could push right off of this little support and trend and start making some new highs in SCCO. Beyond that, with the dollar pulling back the way it is, we would look for any commodities to potentially move higher. You will want to notice that this morning we're indicating just a little bit higher on the US dollar and a pop back up, but that doesn't seem to be hurting some of these miners out here like Newmont Mining and gold. Very, very bullish looking chart in here. We've got a major resistance here to break through, but boy, keep an eye on Newmont. If it can push on through up here, I would watch that closely. Things like Barrick Gold trying to hold a support level down in here. Clearly we've lost this upside trend, but we're seeing quite a few of these stocks showing some bullishness in that area. And then of course we're seeing gold trying to pop higher this morning. We're seeing silver trying to pop higher this morning. So I would keep an eye on these. Notice here in silver, we may be breaking this morning at the open, breaking that little downtrend. Any higher low in here starts or resumes an upside trend. So watch carefully in there on silver as well. And some of those silver miners would be worth keeping an eye on, like PAAS. Now this has consolidated for quite a period of time and has honestly just a little teeny tiny downtrend going in there, but you'll notice this price support in here. If silver can pick up, we might actually see that opportunity as we move closer to this trend, that we might pick this right on up if that dollar starts to strengthen again. So I'd keep a close eye on that. Speaking of the dollar strengthening this morning, let's take a look at energy. If we take a look at XLE, XLE has been moving in this downtrend. As a matter of fact, if I were to make a parallel line here, notice that we have actually confirmed this downtrend with a lower high followed by a lower low. So we'll want to keep an eye on energy here. If the dollar starts to strengthen up, we would expect to see oil continue to show weakness here. Any rally back up into this downtrend or this potential resistance area in the chart, I would be watching for that next sell wave to maybe come in on energy. Keep a close eye on that. When we look at some of these energy stocks, you can see those patterns have really developed here in that downtrend looking chart in the chart. Now if we look at our moving averages, you'll want to notice that we're right there on that 50-day moving average. So is that possibility that we're going to bounce in here and push back up? But keep watching those downtrending and resistance areas in the chart for that next potential short. So watch those carefully. Let's take a look at our financials. Our financials, it's interesting that our financials really haven't gotten going here. If we really suspect that rates are going to fall, that the Fed is going to cut rates, I would have thought that we would have seen a bigger move here in the financials. Now perhaps that happens today, but notice what we're struggling in this little downtrend here. We've got this wedging pattern going on, trying to see if they can push back through. I would keep a pretty close eye on XLF. I think anything is possible here. Notice we're trying to dance with that 50-day moving average here in the chart as well. So we've got a little bit of a double whammy of price resistance in there. I would watch this carefully. I think anything is possible here. We could push this on up, but boy, there is some concern out here in the banks as well, with all of these defaults starting to rise, and that possibility that we could push on down. I'm going to put about a 50-50 odds on this that it goes up or goes down. Watch that closely here in the chart on the financials. And then I'm going to have to mention utilities here again. If we take a look at XLU, you wouldn't typically see in a very, very bullish market, utilities being so strong to the upside. What we're looking at here is that potential that there may be more fear than the market is letting on, and folks are running in and picking up big strong dividend payers here in the market. XLU really strong here, and just go through some of the stocks in that sector, and we're seeing lots of bullishness on NEE. Take a look at Southern. Very, very bullish charts here overall in some of those utilities. Good, strong dividend pairs, a little bit of a safety play. And speaking of safety play, well, we've got to continue to talk about some of these old boring divvy pairs and products out there like Coca-Cola. That is a nice looking chart, breaking through resistance, resting out here. Keep an eye on Coke. Keep an eye on PepsiCo. PepsiCo making that break to the back to the upside, still dealing with some resistance in the chart, as you can see, but maybe trying to set up for that next move higher. And we're seeing quite a few of these defensive type stocks really making some nice moves in the market. Take a look at Altria having pushed back up here nicely, a little higher low in here. Gets set up an opportunity. How about 3M? Beautiful little chart in here, pushing through resistance. Nice little rest back, could be setting for that next move to the upside. I'd keep an eye on that as well. So there's quite a few stocks for you to look at, and I could keep going here for the next hour or so on stocks that are making all kinds of interesting patterns, both long and short. But we better cut this video off this morning. I want to wish you all a fantastic day. Thanks so much for being here. I do truly appreciate it. I will see you right back here bright and early Tuesday morning. And as always, I wish you all the very, very best.